Hello and welcome to YourTown from the Monterey Peninsula. I'm Thomas Hood and I'm here today with Rick Aldinger, General Manager of the Big Sur River Inn. And we invited him here today because there's a lot going on down there after a lot of serious events and quite a history to go with it. And I think we're going to have some interesting things we can touch on here today. But my first question is, Rick, as I understand it, raised in Iowa, went to Iowa Falls. Okay. Big Sur is more than a couple of miles away from Iowa Falls. I know that because I went to Iowa State just like you did.
Yeah.
Graduating only a decade before you. You started in computer science,
I
which
did.
was hot back then.
It was the thing to do, and that's probably why I chose that. Well, that's the thing to do, and jumped into that, and at some point realized, that's not who I am. That's not what would not be my vision for my life, sitting at a desk trying to figure out code.
So you hung it out for 4 years with those beautiful Ames, Iowa winters with a 25-degree below zero weather and the crosswind from Nebraska, and you stuck it out. You got the degree and immediately said, "This is not for me."
It's not for me. I was reading the daily university paper one day, and I saw an ad for Uncle Sam was willing to pay off student loans, and so I jumped on that, and that's how I got here through the military. I spent some time at DLI, learned a language, Korean.
Korean studies, and then they sent you overseas.
Right. Yeah, I did a year and a half here, which was great. The switch was that someone else was paying me to go to school. Learned a language, did some technical training in a couple other places here, but then spent a year in Korea and actually had a job to do, which was at that time more than a lot of my coworkers had. A lot of people just spent all their time training for a job. I actually had one, and so that was meaningful.
So your first visit to the Monterey Peninsula was, you're in the armed forces, you're at DLI, and somehow someone said, "We're going to take a ride down the road," and that was your first exposure to Big Sur?
Yeah, I remember my first trip to Big Sur was just a couple weeks after arriving here in Monterey, and who isn't impressed by that drive down the coast and seeing Big Sur? We went to Pfeiffer Beach and spent some time there, and over time, and it didn't take long. I fell in love with the area and knew I didn't want to go back to Iowa at that point.
But yet you didn't stay. You went on and lived in Korea for a while.
I did. I spent a year there. Yeah.
Thinking about the Big Sur coast?
Indeed, that was was a very interesting and exciting experience to go anywhere overseas, I think, and in particular Korea was an interesting place to spend some time, and decided I didn't want to live there either. I separated from the Army here at Fort Ord, and ran into a wonderful couple who owned one of the privately owned campgrounds in Big Sur, and my wife and I went to work for them. That was in 1989,
right.
And spent 20 years with them at the campground there, and in 2007 moved over to the Big Sur River Inn.
So it really didn't take very long. You graduated in '84 with a computer science degree. You join the armed forces, you're studying Korean language, you're part of the elite, you're sent overseas to Korea, you come back and you make the decision, this is the place, and now it's 30 years later.
And it's all gone by in the blink of an eye.
Don't tell me about that.
Yeah, raised two kids in Big Sur. As a matter of fact, my son was born on the living room floor at home in Big Sur, as it's customary to do in Big Sur. So I had that experience. We did, yeah.
Okay,
and it was a great experience.
Tell us a little bit about, from your background and your perspective, you're a resident, I guess. At 30 years, I can consider you a permanent residence. You don't have generations there, but living in Big Sur and working there, what's that like?
It's a great experience. I don't know how many times I've had a conversation with people at the River Inn or elsewhere. It's an unfortunate reality that I have to work for a living, and that being the case, why not do it there? It's such a gorgeous, fulfilling place to be, just to exist there, and it doesn't come without its challenges, and we've seen several of those in the last 27 plus years that I've been there.
Well, I've read a interesting statistic, if I get the numbers right, in light of what's happened this winter with the mudslides and Pfeiffer Bridge and Mud Creek, where the soil now is apparently about 80 feet deep on Highway 1. And there were a couple things that came up. One is when I moved down here in 2004, I very quickly learned that stretch of Coast Highway was the most, let's call it volatile, most challenging to construct, and the most likely to have the kinds of slides we've experienced this year. But if I've got my numbers right, the road's been closed 36 times in the last 39 years. So tell us a little bit about what's happened this winter. It's part of a continuum, right? It's always occurred. Fires have always occurred. But give us kind of an oversight of what you've seen in the last year there, how it's changed from a year ago when you had so much traffic.
Yeah, we talked earlier about many people had gotten to the point where there was a lot of discussion about over-visitation. And
it was a year ago. It was in the paper, too.
Just a short time ago, a very short time ago. And I understood that conversation, and there were a lot of people around, and to me, I wasn't so sure it was over visitation as much as it was disrespectful visitation, and those were the people getting the attention, people who weren't respecting the this gorgeous, beautiful, clean, pristine place they were visiting.
Are we talking about the folks that would park in the middle of one at the foot of Bixby Bridge, or take a selfie in the left-hand lane and things like that?
Yeah, feeling like
camping.
I can go anywhere I want. There are no rules. There are no rules, and that's unfortunate because the people who have spent time in Big Sur, both residents who just live there because that's where they want to be, and also very fortunately the business people who are there, by and large, have always considered themselves stewards of Big Sur and of the area, that they're not there to glean whatever they can from Big Sur to line pockets. Profits are great. It's what keeps people in business. It's what keeps people working. And but equally as important to virtually everyone down there is that we have to take care of this place. And so it's what we were seeing prior to July of last year was troubling for most people, and a topic of a lot of discussion to see what we might do to remedy that situation, and if nothing else, to help educate our visitors on the proper care of such a beautiful place.
Well, the word you used a moment ago, stewardship, it recalls kind of a statement I made when I was living in Marin County. I had a piece of property with my house on it that was a 50 by 100 foot by 150 foot lot. And friends would say, what do you mean 50 by 150 by 150? I said, well, there's a 50-foot grade change in the back, and the trees, second growth redwoods, are 100 feet tall, and I'm the steward of 13 redwoods in my backyard. And I really had that feeling like, I've got to respect these, so when I was building on site, is respecting that those guys were here first, and trying to strike a balance. And down in Big Sur, the balance is not only with safety, with campers and fires. Nature has a huge control of just about everything with potential lightning strikes. Then a fire last summer, that was caused by a campfire. Is that correct?
It was an illegal campfire, and it was
illegal in that its location, or
yeah, it was a no camping area. It was a day use hiking area. And it goes back to describing how people, at least a small percentage. It doesn't take many people to cause problems when they decide that they can do what they want and the rules don't apply.
The campsites are full, and they figure, well, let's just go over here on the trail.
Yeah, it's a nicer, more secluded location, whatever the reason, but that's okay for me to do that, and not understanding how careful you have to be in that situation. And you know, I'm assuming they went up and got high enough that they were had a beautiful view, found a flat enough spot to set up camp or whatever it was, and didn't realize that eventually the wind was going to come up. And you know, that's
There's
what
no
happens.
stopping
That's
it.
what happens. Yeah, it happens so quickly and gets out of hand so quickly.
Now then winter comes around. We have record rains after too much traffic and not enough rain, and we get the opposite effect. Now Big Sur is open. A lot of people don't think that, and it's been on national news. The devastating effect not only on the economy, but that fabulous route from Santa Barbara up the coast is blocked by Mud Creek. Now you, as general manager of Big Sur River Inn, bring us some good news as to what's going on down there. Is it open?
Yeah, the good news is Big Sur has continued to be open almost without interruption, at least portions of it. There are portions that were inaccessible, continue to be inaccessible, at least to public traffic. But on the north side of Pfeiffer Canyon, where the famous Pfeiffer Canyon Bridge, we all saw the images of the bridge buckling and then ultimately being deconstructed and falling into the canyon. But businesses north of the bridge have continued to be accessible all along, and there are lots of opportunities north of the bridge to experience Big Sur. You can take the, it's a lot of Big Sur is about the drive along the coast. The greatest meeting
people
of
can
sand
come from
and-
Carmel or Monterey and still have that experience, 26, 27 miles.
Yeah, I describe ourselves as being located right now on a 26-mile long cul-de-sac. And so that's maybe a good way to look at it.
Okay.
There are a lot of things available. The drive, if you start in Carmel, you have Point Lobos. Lots of hiking.
And the
available
trails are
there.
open again. They just reopened one of the most popular trails, I think just 2 weeks ago.
At Lobos?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware. So that's good news. You go farther down, you have Garrapatta State Park. Garrapatta is actually where the fire started last summer, and so trails on the east side of the highway are still closed because they were damaged by fire. But there are some great trails on the west side of Highway 1 at Garrapatta State Park. On a cliff overlooking the ocean. It's beautiful. You can see whale spouts and whale tails every once in a while. From that location, you can hike down onto the beach there. And so there's some great hiking available there.
So there's plenty for people to
Bixby Bridge is on the
go
way.
and see. Bixby Bridge, what?
Bixby Bridge is along the way.
That's true.
It's one of the most iconic bridges probably in the world.
Yeah.
Where all the selfies happen.
So what's going on at River Inn this summer? That is, I mentioned earlier, that's probably my favorite destination. One, it's the closest at the end of that cul-de-sac. But sitting in the river there and listening to jazz, are you going to have the same summer jazz program there with local artists?
Yeah, it's maybe not at the level of business that we're used to or historically have seen, but we are open business as usual at the River Inn, and our summer music series is underway already. We start that usually on marathon weekend.
Okay.
And so that's what we did this year, started our music series on marathon weekend and have continued it every Sunday since, and it'll go through the summer into the first couple weekends of October.
The feeling that I got first time I went down there and sat on the lawn and then stepped into the creek and sat on a chair, and you've got the restaurant going on one side, there's people staying in the inns, they're lounging all over the lawn, and the barbecue's going away. It sort of feels like a kind of a frozen time, almost like a city park. It's like one of those gathering places. And even if you've got 200 people there, it's such a mellow experience. And you can sit in so many different places and have great food. And I just find it to be absolutely wonderful. If there was nothing else but that open, that's a fabulous experience. But there's more down the road as well.
Sure.
And there are trails that are open?
Yes. We have, again, all along, we've had 3 of the privately owned campgrounds in Big Sur in the valley have been open and accessible: tent camping, RV camping, cottages and cabins, a variety of lodging available. They've been there all along. Pfeiffer State Park, which is, the big name.
Right.
It's also, the largest park. They just opened a couple weeks ago, and it was a partial opening, about 50 campsites.
Okay.
But they continue to work on cleaning up the damage that they sustained from the winter storms, and will continue to increase openings and be fully open by July 1st. They are open for reservations beginning July 1st, and I understand that
Good.
it's a little hard to get a reservation at this point. That's a really good sign. So Pfeiffer State Park is open, and they've also have a limited number of hiking trails available at this time. They continue to work hard on opening more, and they will continue to do that throughout the summer to open more of the hiking trails.
Good.
But there's also several great restaurants. River Inn happens to be one of them.
80 years old this year, is that right?
Well, not this year. The River Inn was the first resort built in Big Sur, and that was in 1934.
Okay.
So we're, whatever that got, 83 years this year. And
How long has that been in the same family? It has the feel of a family resort. When you walk in, you have that big stone fireplace, the fire's going, and you kind of wander your way back to the bar out on the deck.
80 years is a while.
Yeah.
Seems like yesterday when it opened up.
I'm not 80 yet. I don't know what you mean by that.
So much of the River Inn is exactly the same as it was when it was first constructed. We've got a wall in the restaurant where we have historic photos, and you can see the dining room as it was originally built, and you can look around and still locate pieces of the foundation, post the iconic image is of course that big stone fireplace, and it's exactly the same as it was.
You don't have to go down there on a sunny day. You can go down there on a foggy day and sit by the fire and have a great meal. It's really kind of an all-weather place. If it's warm and there's a nice little breeze, you can go down and sit in the river. You can be camping in the area. To me, just living here, a great escape is staying down there for a night. It's 30 miles away, but it's a completely another universe. Do you realize after 30 years how lucky you are to be working down there?
I think I do. I hope I maintain an appreciation for that. I tell people all the time, it's an unfortunate reality that I have to work for a living. And that being the case, what better place than the Big Sur River Inn?
So your message
beautiful.
today is we're open for business.
We're open.
Lots to do. Come down and
the Adirondack chairs are back in the river. The river was too high for a while,
right,
but they're back in the river. You can take off your shoes and socks and cool your feet in the river. We're doing the live jazz along the banks of the river on Sunday afternoons.
and we can look forward to a great summer.
Along with the barbecue.
Rick, thank you for coming.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, Tom.
Best of luck with the summer, and we'll see you down in the river.
All right, very good.